Hello and welcome to Express Sports Podcast. You're listening to Game Time with me, Mihir, Vinayakk and Amit. We are coming to you a bit later than usual this week, and that's largely because one of us, I think it'll perhaps get clear as we proceed this podcast, made this prediction of the test going all the way down to the wire, either the test or the Wimbledon. So we decided we'll do a toss-up the next morning and figure out what to talk about. And turns out the third test between India and England did go right down to the wire. Not the result India would have expected, but a great test match nevertheless. So here we are, belated, but आपके कानों में हम पहुंच ही गए हैं. Vinayakk, Amit, who wants to take credit for anticipating that this will be a cracker of a match and a podcast on this would be ideal?
I don't know if I want to take credit for it, but we certainly a procrastinating tactic that actually worked out okay. We didn't want to do it without you, Mihir, so that was the idea essentially. So I came up with a reason, okay, let's wait till Monday or Tuesday.
And it worked out pretty well, huh? What a day. What a brilliant end to a test match. And what a series it's turning out to be. I don't know if you guys thought with Virat and Rohit gone, India A would be competitive and the test series would have an edge. But, I mean, it's had both so far.
Sorry, Mir, did you just call them India A?
Oh, did I?
It's a Freudian slip in a sense. Like with Virat and Rohit gone, India A would be so competitive. They are competitive. I think 22 runs short of the target is... And especially Mir, that final dismissal, that ball just creeping in behind Siraj and just tickling the stump enough for it to drop the bail. That was, I think...
Proper slow-mo.
Yeah, cruel.
Yeah.
What we've also seen is the fight. There were a lot of things, over the last 3 test matches. If we talk about the series as a whole, we've had all of these questions about can they take 20 England wickets in a test match without Jasprit Bumrah? Well, they have. We've asked whether, this young Indian team can stand up. They have. Shubman Gill's captaincy, how it will weigh on him. He's done admirably well. Everything that we thought, it's curious, has already gone really well. And now we have an 8-day gap until we have the 4th test match. So... some brilliant days of Test cricket already behind us, and I think more to come.
Yeah, absolutely. And Vinayakk, we'll of course get into that whole drama of the third Test match and the final day at Lord's and everything. But since we haven't really spoken about the series on the podcast from the time it began, if you were to give an overview, do you think... there are, of course, big glaring lapses in this Indian batting lineup. One that predates Rohit Sharma's and Virat Kohli's retirements. The top order batting being one of them. But on the whole, are you kind of surprised by how competitive India have been in this series so far?
I think there was rightly questions asked before the series began on how these guys would adapt. I think the pitches have helped a little bit. First 2 matches were quite flat, right? There's not really too much happening for the bowlers. So that was kind of a good place for the batters to get their runs tally quite high. The second test especially was, Shubman played superbly for 430 runs, so take nothing away from him. But I think in challenging conditions, perhaps this batting lineup might have struggled a little bit, which we saw. I think Lord's second innings was a good example of that.
Challenging bowling tour.
Yeah, and once Jofra came in and there was a little bit of spice from the wicket in Lord's in the second innings, we saw how this batting lineup... So I think that was kind of what we expected. So that wasn't a complete surprise. But yeah, so far the performances have not been below par for sure, right? They've done well. They should have probably won the first test in Leeds too, after the target that they set, but 2 collapses lower down the order and plenty of drop catches. That kind of put paid to that. Otherwise, I think India dominated that test and should really have won that. Chasing 192 at Lord's, I don't think the batting lineup covered themselves in glory here. So bit of up and down, I guess, which is probably expected considering the inexperience in this lineup.
And since you mentioned the batting lineup, I think it's in a way good segue to get into that topic. And while there have been big hundreds and consistent hundreds on all 3 test matches, it has been a kind of an Achilles heel, hasn't it? If you look at the top 4 batsmen. I mean, just the way, I mean, they give away, right? After you've lost, say, Shubman Gill or one steady force and the middle order just collapses. And then you look at the last 4 wickets. Now, in the first test, first innings, the last 4 batters contributed just 17. In the second innings of the first test, it was 15. Second test, first innings, they were 25. Third test, first innings, it was 11. And I mean, largely thanks to Jadeja, that stat got saved in the second innings of the Lord's Test. But we see where the problem is. The frequent collapses that we've seen right from the Australia series, they haven't really stopped yet. And it's haunting India again and again.
What was also fascinating, I think, was these collapses seem to they come with a timing of sorts. Like, they're just before a session is about to end. I think Dinesh Karthik and Michael Vaughan were talking about this recently, where they pointed out that, I mean, obviously Michael Vaughan being himself, he made a joke about how the Indians really like their food here, which is why if you are dismissed by the time lunch session comes around, you can have a full hearty meal. You don't have to worry about going out and playing and all of that, which is why that was happening. But there is a sense of truth to it. There was this graphic that I saw about how many wickets we are losing right when we are about to enter into a break. In Headingley, we saw wickets of KL Rahul and Sai Sudarshan on day 1. On day 2, we saw Shubman, Karun, Rishabh Pant, Shardul. At Edgbaston, we saw Karun Nair, Jadeja. The third test again at Lords, we saw Pant on day 3, and then again Nitish Reddy and Jasprit Bumrah on day 5. So there is clearly this, I don't know what it is. Maybe they're thinking about, taking a break and then coming back and doing it again, or maybe they're letting their thoughts get ahead of them in a sense. But then that has been happening a lot. Like them losing wickets right when the break is on the horizon.
Vinayakk, how do you look at that? Because again, if we have to kind of look at the bigger picture, those things are really haunting the team again and again, right? We talk about the first test where the collapse really cost India a good amount of runs. In the first innings of the third test, I mean, we keep talking about the KL Rahul and Pant mix-up and one that led to a run-out of Rishabh Pant. But after that, there wasn't really any contribution from the middle and lower order. And these collapses are becoming too frequent for anyone's comfort. And I don't think if there has been enough debate around this, at least in this series.
Yeah, that's probably the reason why they are 1-2 down right now, right? The timing of the wickets and the context of those wickets have also been a big issue. Like KL Rahul and Rishabh Pant were in complete control when that run-out happened. And if that run-out hadn't happened, I mean, I would say with like 99.9% guarantee that India would have had a first innings lead instead of the 387 that we saw. I mean, and a sizable one too, probably, right? Like maybe 40-50 run lead would have been the difference in winning the match and losing the match. And yeah, the timing and the context of these wickets at the wrong time. I don't think wickets, I mean, there is a right time to lose a wicket. But yeah, just before lunch is typically when you want to steady the ship, make sure there's nothing, that even the Akashdeep night watchman, I mean, he could have not lost another wicket late on day 4 and you never know what would have happened, right? And Shubman Gill was already looking shaky, so that in-swinger has bothered him. Like Sriram Veera keeps saying that he has had a problem, which he didn't show this series. It looked like he had worked on it. And then there you go. Suddenly, late on day 3, that nip backer gets him LPW. So that sort of old weakness came to the fore again. And that was such a crucial time to lose a wicket. I mean, Akashdeep had to come in and then, he did the right thing. Rahul did the right thing in, protecting his wicket. That's the purpose of the night watchman. That was a crazy debate on social media saying, why did Rahul take a single? Why? They sent a night watchman to protect the batter, not for the batter to protect the night watchman. Right. So that was not a mistake from Rahul, but it ended up costing India a lower order wicket. And like what we saw yesterday, if maybe Akashdeep was there alongside Bumrah and Siraj to bat another 30 balls, who knows what would have happened, right? So these are the things the little things that have hurt India. And I mean, for the cricket that they've played, the quality of cricket overall that they played over 15 days of test cricket, they shouldn't be trailing 1-2, but they are because of their own mistakes, I think.
What do you make of Karun Nair though? He's again like a split opinion. I think he's done pretty well. At least he hasn't looked out of place. Just that bit about converting all the starts that he's been getting, that's lacking. But I hope he does get a longer rope.
I actually do think he's looked a little out of place, to be honest, Mihir. So,
oh, really?
Yeah, not number 3, I think. They probably need to have a relook at that. I mean, the Karun Nair who has had success in domestic cricket is someone who plays a little more freely. He looks a little circumspect, and the dismissals are reflecting that, right?
But then look at the bowling attack in domestics, right?
Exactly. I mean, but still, you would expect him to be a little more confident, which I have not seen. I mean, it feels like he's a very tentative at the crease and not really flowing as a batter, as a number 3 should perhaps. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind a longer rope. Just that I don't think he's looked too comfortable at the crease, especially with his dismissals, the shots that he's playing or not playing. I think that's a bit of a problem. That there is 8 days between the tests, and if India really do need to give him a longer rope, there's probably one more test for him to show what he's got. But I think time might be running out for him.
Yeah, if I were to be harsh, I'd kind of pick on Jaiswal for the shot he played in the second innings at Lord's. Completely uncalled for in the situation, and a solid start there would have kind of, given India the lift off they would have wanted. But chalo, I mean, everyone's allowed one or two blips in the series. Now, it's ironical because you're packing the team with all-rounders, and then batting-wise, even they don't give a hand. So if you were Gambhir or Gill, would you kind of, drop one of the all-rounders and get a specialist batsman in for Manchester?
No, I mean, if I was Gambhir or Gill, I wouldn't have had these many all-rounders in the first place before the series started. But that's what they've been doing since Australia, right? I mean, it is a very T20 way of looking at Test cricket from Gambhir, I feel. And he seems to want this options, so to speak, lower down the order with the bat and to share the load with the ball, which I don't know works in Test cricket. But the problem now is they seem to have... So it worked. Definitely it worked in Edgbaston. The depth did come into play. Washington played a decent hand. And then here at Lord's, Nitish bowled. I mean, he was the pick of the bowlers on day one, who would have thought. And he did all right with the bat too.
Washi was in the second innings.
Yeah. And Washi did superbly in the second innings. So on basis of their performances, do they deserve to be dropped? I don't know. But, I mean, it's not good for the balance of the team, I feel, which I would have said it at the start of the series too. Like, I mean, they need a little more specialist thinking in how to win this test series, but I don't think that's going to happen, especially given what we've seen. I think it might have only reinforced their sort of obsession with these all-round options loaded on the order. So, yeah, I guess that's probably not going to change. Maybe the personnel will, based on whether Bumrah is going to play or, they want an Arshdeep coming in for an Akashdeep, things like that. But, yeah, I don't think the balance is going to change.
I really can't see how they'll rest Bumrah for the fourth test. I mean, it's a long enough gap between now and the Manchester test, which begins next Thursday, I think. And also the whole context of the series, right? I mean, I understand that, you'd said that he'll play only 3 test matches before the series started. But now you're at a situation where if Bumrah doesn't play the Manchester test and India do not win that one and go on to lose that one, you're kind of losing the series. So it'll surprise me if they drop Bumrah, but then weirder things have happened in Indian cricket. Amit, where do you think that decision will go? Gill didn't give away anything in the post-match presentation ceremony yesterday.
Yeah, the bigger problem, I think, is that after the fourth test, the gap between the fourth and the fifth test is really short. I think it's just 4 days or something, if I'm not mistaken.
But you still have to be alive in the series, right?
I mean, you still had to be alive in the series after you went 1-0 down, but then they did rest Bumrah. I know you had longer chances. You had 3 more tests after the second test, so they could have taken a risk. But still, if they've come out with that theory, we are going to play him only 3 tests, it makes sense for them to maybe play him in the 5th test and then kind of hope that somebody steps up like they did at Edgbaston.
Oh, wow, I'll be gobsmacked if that happens, Vinayakk.
Yeah, I think so. It's obviously dependent on his fitness, his body. I mean, if body is not right, then there's no call to take there. But if he's feeling okay, like he was declared fit for Edgbaston and not picked, if he is fully fit, then 100% he should play in Manchester. I don't think there are two ways about that. I mean, there's no point in protecting him for a 5th test that might not have much value other than WTC points. And if they lose, then it's a simple decision to rest him for the Oval test. But if they win also, I think they can probably take the call. Okay, so it's 2-2 now. Let's try and squeeze another test out of him. Before the series began, they were a little non-committal about whether it's 3 or 4 tests. So I'll give them that. I mean, in case, I think you were there at the press conference, right? I mean, Gambhir didn't really give too much away. Or Agarkar, I think, in that press conference, didn't really give too much away on whether it'll be 3 or 4 tests. They just said he's not going to play all tests. So
in both, Agarkar and Gambhir Gill, both. They didn't.
Yeah, I remember. So, so if it's 2-2, then maybe they'll be tempted to play him at the Oval and make it 4 tests. But I mean, this break will and should help Bumrah. I mean, hope he's fit enough for both tests. India will definitely need him, that's for sure.
Yeah, and it's crazy how Siraj has stepped up and like brought that aggression, which is quite crazy. In fact, I don't know how you guys see this, but at some level, I feel that with Kohli and Rohit both gone, right? The quote unquote father figures of this team, ऐसे दो बुजुर्ग जब टीम के चले गए तो बच्चे थोड़े शैतान हो गए ऐसा लग रहा है. सबकी आवाजें निकलना शुरू हो गई है. Lots of words being exchanged, and we saw what happened when it was the fourth day or the third day of the Lord's Test when that whole grow some balls incident happened. Everyone's personalities are coming out, and I wasn't sure what India would look like, especially in terms of sledging or aggression once Kohli and Rohit retired. But it's been quite fascinating to watch that side of this team.
गार्डन में घूमने वाले लौंडे हो गए सारे, सब बड़े हो गए basically.
I know.
This is a coming of age series in other ways than we anticipated, I guess. But then, yeah, Mir perfectly summed up how we've seen Shubman Gill, that polished whatever princeling that we thought that he would be, like, completely oozing all class and whatever. And then he suddenly comes up and
oozing balls.
Exactly. Starts dropping bangers, pointing fingers and whatever, gesticulating angrily, getting into people's faces, which we would not have thought. We thought a tattooed, mustachioed, bearded Virat Kohli ka trait tha. But clearly he's taking some cues from the senior pros.
Yeah, absolutely.
I enjoyed it. I loved every bit of aggression, as long as it does not get too out of hand, I guess.
I mean, out of hand, to kya hi hoga yaar?
There is also something to be said for the fact that at the end of the match, all of the England players came and, hugged Siraj and Jadeja.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. So for what we saw on day 3 and, all the sledging and all that happened, the match finished in really good spirits, which is what you want to see, right? I mean, you want a little bit of needle in these test matches. I mean, that's always what makes these contests more fascinating. That's why India-Australia has been that sort of rivalry, England-Australia for that matter now. Yeah, so it's a little bit, we've seen in the home series as well, some banter going on between India and England. And yeah, I think the Lord's Test was probably the most dramatic things I've gotten, at least in my memory, in an India-England test. So that I think that is okay. Like Amit said, I don't think it should cross a line, and I don't think it did at Lord's either. So
yeah, it's only that ICC acts like a very strict boarding school principal, rapping the students on the knuckles every time there is a slightest hint of mischief. I mean, imagine if Siraj was fined for whatever he did. If there is a football-like celebration every time bowler takes wicket, then ICC would just fine every match fee for every player.
Someone should take their shirts off and celebrate one day. I think it would be interesting to see what happens. Yellow card.
4 demerit points in one game simultaneously.
Yeah, and if you take your shirt off at Lord's and celebrate on ground, then it will be like banned for 1 year straight away.
Ganguly had the right idea. He did it in the balcony.
Yeah. But Siraj, what a series he's at. Incredible, no?
You actually brought up a good point there. I think in all our discussions regarding Bumrah and the bowling attack and the workload and all that, I think it kind of goes under the radar how fit and consistent Siraj has been. I think consistent in terms of his presence in the team. He had an up and down Bhargava Trophy. I think he didn't have the best of series, at least not as good as the one that he had on his debut tour. But he's always been there, right? Somehow there is never a workload question around Siraj. He's just there. He just runs in. He might be bowling well or might not be bowling well, but that energy and that aggression is always there. And it must be nice to have a bowler like Siraj in your team as a captain, right? You know that you can give the ball to him. He'll give his best. And he's someone that would run in at any time of the day and bowl at the same sort of energy levels that he shows in the first session of a first test of the series. So that's, I think, a very underrated trait of Siraj, and he has to be appreciated for. And he bowled well too. It's just not that in Lords, and I think he was a little unlucky not to have more wickets in both the second and third test, but he's been bowling really well. I think that's more good news for Shubman at least, so that he knows there is at least a second option to take wickets, not just Bumrah.
Imagine if Shami was fit and ready to go in this series. That would have been a killer combination. A fit Shami, a fit Bumrah, and the ever-fit Siraj. It would have been like a proper dream team for pace bowling in these conditions here. But alas, Shami isn't there. But in his absence, I think Akashdeep, he showed good stuff at the second test match in Edgbaston. And crazy how from 10 wickets you go right down to 0, I think, the first innings, and then getting a couple of good dismissals. The reverse commentator's curse, right? Commentators were just talking about looks to be struggling and some issue with the back, and there he just produces a delivery out of nothing and bowls out. I don't remember who it was, but I at least remember it was one of the many bowled dismissals in the second innings. So pretty solid there.
Harry Brook, big wicket.
Harry Brook, yeah. So bowling actually, surprisingly, has held up pretty well. Just the batting, घूम फिर के हम वहीं पर आते हैं. And I think if not for the massive run machine that Gill has turned out to be in this series and the steadiness of KL Rahul, how good has he been, guys?
I think, Mihir, we spoke about this before the tour started. We kind of said that, KL Rahul has been somebody who's been around for a while. He's had centuries in all the big cricketing countries, the testing cricketing countries in a sense. But he's never made a series his own. He's always had, 1 century, 2 centuries maybe over the course of a series, but then he's not made a series his own. And I think this time, at least in the 3 tests, he's shown some glimpses of doing that. We obviously need to see whether he continues that in the next 2 games. But yeah, so far so good from him, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And we come to the closing parts of this, Vinayakk, and there is no way we can not talk about Ravindra Jadeja. I feel very sad for him. Lords could have been his moment where he is good. There's no doubt about this. But, he would have had something to hang on to for the rest of his career, something to show for all the greatness that he's had. And just very unfortunate that it ended the way it did. But what a player, seriously.
Yeah, I mean, his batting is probably the most improved trait over the last few years of his career. I mean, I remember a time when he used to be this frustrating all-rounder who did well with the ball, but he'd have these starts with the bat and then not convert them.
Yeah.
He'd get out at the wrong times. Remember that 175 innings by Sachin where Jadeja could have won the match and, he ended up not being on the winning side that night. One of my most heartbreaking Sachin knocks, that one. So I still remember that. So from those days, I mean, in Test cricket especially, I don't think we ever saw the full value of Ravindra Jadeja until, I think, 2016-17, one of the England series actually at home, where he started converting these into 80s and 90s and, the centuries also came along. Such a value add in the middle order, right? I mean, I wish he bats a little better with the tail. He did really well at Lord's yesterday, but I think he had the right idea. He was calculating that 1 run every over, maybe a couple here and there, and a 4. Suddenly, the target is within reach, which it was very much within reach at the end there. He had the right idea. He had good support from Siraj and Bumrah. But in general, he can improve his batting with the tail a little bit, seeing as he comes in at 6 or 7. So that's an area he can still improve. But the technique that he's shown to negotiate, just be solid on defense, and whatever tactic England threw at him, he's shown that he can handle. I think first innings as well, Sandeep sir wrote that piece about his partnership with Nitish was very solid, where he showed how technically adept he is in handling pace and spin. So yeah, I mean, genuinely heartbreaking for him that he didn't have his Ben Stokes moment there at the end where, Jack Leach, India needed a Jack Leach. Siraj just fell short in the end there. But yeah.
Or the Jimmy Adams from that test match, I think in Port of Spain, way back against Australia.
Yeah, that it'll rankle him for a while.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, nearly had his career-defining moment as a test cricketer there.
It was unbelievable how just motionless both Jadeja and Siraj became after that bail came off, It was one of those really heartbreaking moments on the field that I think I have experienced after a very long time. I don't think I was invested in a test match emotionally in a while. But yeah, it was one of those moments where you actually felt ki yaar itna nazdeek lekar aaya, and it wasn't still outlandish, the whole possibility of chasing down 22 more, but there it was. But still, great series.
I actually had flashbacks to that 99 test in Chennai. I think the video also went last night on Twitter. Javagal Srinath getting out almost exact same fashion. After Sachin's century, the back problem, him taking India so close and then getting out. Then I remember, I think there is an anecdote of how he didn't want to come out for the presentation ceremony. And he basically came out with cried out eyes. And one of those most heartbreaking memories as a kid following cricket. I was supposed to be there in Chennai that day. I had tickets for that match that day, and I didn't end up going. But yeah, that Srinath dismissal came flashing back. One of those, another heartbreak.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. We have more heartbreak stories as kids following Indian cricket than now, because I don't know if we play fewer test matches or we're just immune to whatever happens on the field. But it just is kind of, when we look back, it looks like there were more heartbreaking moments. I remember the Zimbabwe match. I'm going off on a tangent, but Zimbabwe match at the 99 World Cup, was it? Yeah, 99 World Cup, which India lost when Tendulkar was back home for his father's funeral. Those things really affect you and you remember, but anyway, it was one of those.
It's funny you should bring up the 99 World Cup Zimbabwe match. because I think there is another connect with what we've been discussing. The number of extras India bowled in this test. That Zimbabwe match.
Wow. I trust Vinayakk to come up with these.
Right. So I remember how many whole bunch of extras we gave in that Zimbabwe match was one of the reasons we lost. And in Lord's, 65 extras? I think. Crazy number, right? In a low scoring match. So yeah, there's another connect.
Incredible.
Hey guys, since we are doing digressions, just one from my stable. You know how Vinayakk said that he was supposed to go for one of those test matches which India ended up losing and Tendulkar scored a century. So I had a very similar year. In 2011, I was supposed to go to Wankhede to watch a test match where India was playing West Indies, and it was one of those where Tendulkar was supposed to do his 100th century. Overnight, he had been batting, I think, at some 70 something. In the morning, we left from my place in a car. By the time we reached Tardev, we heard over the radio that Tendulkar has been dismissed. So we kind of ended up giving the tickets away to somebody else. And well, they ended up watching Ravichandran Ashwin score his first test match 100 ever. So yeah. So that wasn't necessarily a heartbreak, but yeah.
I mean, it was a heartbreak because you just gave away your tickets and something meaningful still happened. So...
By the way, just to confirm, that was 51 extras in that India-Zimbabwe match in the 91, in a 50-over match.
Crazy.
Yeah, and Zimbabwe scored 252. Second highest scorer of the innings was extras.
Incredible. But we do realize that there is another team playing this series too, and we'll focus on England maybe in another episode of Game Time, because that's all we have for today in terms of the time. And once again, apologies for landing late this week. And it was a well-calculated move that really worked out well, guys, I guess, eventually. And I think we'll be back with our normal service of Game Time this weekend. And the fourth test match of the Tendulkar-Anderson series will begin on July 23. Something probably to look forward to that, or something else that is wackier and crazier from the world of sports. So do tune in to Game Time. Thanks for listening.
You were listening to Express Sports by the Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it, share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.